Hey, what's going on, everybody? And happy Mandalorian Star Wars Friday. We are talking about the Season 2 finale, Chapter 16, titled The Rescue, directed by Peyton Reed. And man, what a redemption story for Peyton Reed as he directed the hell out of this episode. We're going to break it all down in this spoiler discussion before we dive into the details. As you can see on the screen now, make sure you're following me on all my other social media accounts like Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, which you can find all those links in the description below. If you are new to the channel, welcome to the community. Consider subscribe and hit that notification bell. That way you can get the alert from when I drop new videos. It would mean a lot to me if you all can share and like this video. It helps out the channel, but I also appreciate the support. And in the comments, let's discuss everything about this chapter 16, from the direction, the action set pieces, the return of Master Luke, the implications for a future season, and of course that post-credit scene. Let's discuss it all in the comments below. And look, before I even jump into my recap, just my initial thoughts. I've seen the episode twice now, and I've been removed from the episode a couple hours. At first, I was just like on an extreme high, but rewatching it, taking down some notes. I have my issues with some of the moments in the episode, but I would say this was more than a satisfying finale for me. This was definitely a redemption story for Peyton Reed, who directed Chapter 10, Episode 2 of this season, which The Passenger wasn't the biggest fan of the episode, but this kind of continues that trend. If you give a director of The Mandalorian a second episode or a third episode in some cases, they'll knock it out of the park. Now, some of the directors obviously did a great job their first time out, but I thought that Peyton Reed definitely stepped up and gave us a phenomenal finale, giving us unanswered questions, giving us incredible action moments, giving us satisfying moments, great emotional moments, the return of Luke Skywalker, which we'll talk about that, and also, like I said, setting up the future of this show. So I was really pleased with this episode. I also want to thank you all for tuning in every single week. I know there's a lot of great content creators covering this show, but I appreciate every single one of you all tuning in every week to watch my recaps and breakdown. And man, what an episode. We're going to break it all down, starting off with the recap. Again, full spoilers here, but the episode opens up with the Slave One chasing down a ship with Dr. Pershing on it. As we see the crew enter the ship, we get this little standoff with Cara Dune talking to one of the Imperial officers as he's kind of taunting her, right? He tells her that he notices the tear in her eye. He was there when Alderaan, her planet, was blown up and killed all the people and wiped out all the terrorists. We see that she eventually shoots him, but it's in this moment that this is one of 3 times that the word clone was used in this episode, as the Imperial officer reminds Cara Dune that he is an important person. The importance of this clone engineer is really something I think is foreshadowing, which we can expect to see not only later in this episode regarding the blood of the child, but also future seasons, a la Snoke, a la Palpatine. So we'll talk about the clone and everything a little bit later, but a good way to really open up the episode. As we move forward, we see Mando tries to recruit Bo-Katan. It is great to see. I believe Katie Sackhoff said that she was going to return this season, which we see that she does, but surprisingly, we saw, I don't know if you all follow Sasha Banks, the wrestler, but she mentioned, oh, this is the last time you'll see me, blah, blah, blah. But we see her again, Kasha Reeves, as we get this really nice moment. It's really cool because we see Bo-Katan. She even says to Mando, I'm not your average bounty hunter. I have a greater purpose. As we know, she wants that dark saber for Mandalore and being the ruler and the leader of Mandalore. But it's within this scene that we see Boba Fett, Bo-Katan, and Kasha Reeves kind of taunting Boba Fett that he's not a Mandalorian, which is just so weird because, again, we got in his return episode him confirming that he is a Mandalorian, but now he's saying, well, I never said I was a Mandalorian. It's kind of confusing on if he is or if he isn't a Mandalorian, but nonetheless, we see this really kind of cool little brief fight sequence between Boba Fett and Kasha Reeves as they both use their powers, their resources to kind of go hand in hand, which Bo-Katan cuts the fight off. She even mentions, like, if we would have had this type of veracity and this type of fighting in us, we could have never lost Mandalore. But nonetheless, she agrees to help Mando in their mission, but she does say, you have to reconsider helping me on my quest, but also when it comes to that dark saber, it's mine. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But moving forward, we see our team making up the plans as they have Dr. Pershing in their possession now. And really interesting moment. We see yet again, this is kind of humanizing Dr. Pershing. We saw it in season 1 when he wanted the child to live against those orders of killing him. And again, we see him helping the team. He gives them some information about Moff Gideon's ship. And he really reminds me a lot of Galen Erso, played by Mads Mikkelsen in Rogue One. It kind of shows you, again, these different scientists that work work for the Empire, they're doing it against their will. He's doing these experiments against his will. So it'll be interesting to see now that Dr. Pershing is in, the good camp per se, if we'll humanize that character and we get a little bit more backstory of him. But nonetheless, we get the plans. We see how all this is going to shake out. The plan is to have Bo-Katan, Krennic, Kasha Reeves, and Cara Dune are going to draw the attention, and that leaves Mando in to sneak in through the shadows to get the child. So, and also key thing is, as Bo-Katan tells Mando, Moff Gideon is mine. She wants him dead, but Cara Dune says we need to keep him alive because he has a lot of valuable information, which we'll talk about that, leaving Moff Gideon alive and what that can mean for a season 3. Moving forward, this is where we get some of the best Mandalorian action that we've got not only all season, but of the entire series. We get TIE fighters getting launched out into space from Moff Gideon's ship. We see them land in Moff Gideon's ship. I love that plan, by the way, of like pretending that Boba Fett is chasing them so they can make their way into the ship. Really great plan. This goes to show you when you have a great team, a bunch of Mandalorians working together, you can get stuff done. But we see a lot of great action here. We see these really kick-ass characters like Bo-Katan, Krennic, Kasha Reeves, and Cara Dune really laying down the work, shooting out the stormtroopers. We also see that the dark stormtroopers are being activated. But it was in this moment that I really appreciated the organic nature of showing the badass women of the Star Wars universe, and particularly the Mandalorian. Not to compare it to a scene that a lot of people bring up about Endgame, feeling that it was forced, highlighting the women, like just forcing it in your face. This, to me, was definitely more organic nonetheless, and really kind of sets up, again, the new Rangers of the New Republic show and a lot of those other shows they announced. And when you build these characters and you plant the seeds, it makes things feel more natural to what's going on. But nonetheless, we get this really great moment here as we see Mando makes his way to the ship, and one of the dark troopers makes it out of their kind of hive area where they charge themselves up. And this scene here was so awesome because it was literally like the Mandalorian fighting a Terminator. We see him trying to use all of his resources, fire, his weapons, but nothing's working except that Beskar spear. We see that he takes out the Dark Trooper. We even see him going to, he launches off the rest of the Dark Troopers, which we'll get them a little bit later. But seeing Mando wielding that, the Beskar spear, him literally choking and cracking and breaking the neck of a stormtrooper. I'm just like, this episode is so amazing on so many levels. But as we move forward, we see Mando makes his way to finding Moff Gideon, which he has a child in his possession, wielding the Darksaber above the child's head. I'm just loving this scene with Moff Gideon. And this really goes to show you Giancarlo Esposito. He's just one of the best actors when it comes to playing villains. Just a great actor in general, but when he plays villains, he just is so great in those roles. We see this conversation kind of break down as he pretty much shows you how great of a villain he is. He's always 10 steps ahead. He knows exactly what's going on, and he kind of persuades Mando in believing that they've struck a deal as he tells Mando, I gotten everything I wanted from the child. You can take him, and Mando's like, you can keep your Darksaber. I just want the child. And in this moment, really interesting to say before they get into this fight, he tells Mando that I gotten what I needed, which is the blood. So again, future seasons, Snoke, Palpatine, clones, he gotten that blood. Did he send it out to Palpatine? Again, that leaves the door open for not only Moff Gideon in season 3, but also, again, who has this blood, who now has it in their possession, which is a great way to foreshadow things ahead. But going into this actual fight, we all predicted it weeks ago, seeing that Beskar spear versus the Darksaber. It was incredible. Seeing Mando again wielding that spear and just he kicks it. I mean, the action in this episode was just some of the best of Star Wars, not just television and The Mandalorian, but just in general in regards to movies, all that stuff. I thought it was just so great. But nonetheless, we see that Mando does take out Moff Gideon alive as he brings him to Bo-Katan. Now, Bo-Katan is not that happy to see what's going on because she sees that Mando is wielding the Darksaber. As we see the scene plays out, Moff Gideon tells Mando that he can't just hand off this Darksaber to a new owner. It has to be earned in a fight. Now, I told you I don't watch Clone Wars or Rebels, but I saw, I did some research, and it seemed like there was a scene of I believe the character's name is Sabine. She gave the Darksaber to Bo-Katan, and she gave it to her. She didn't fight for it. She literally gave her the Darksaber. So I don't know if that contradicts the scene that we have here when we see Moff Gideon say you have to fight for it, and they can't just hand it off, because it's not necessarily that the Darksaber has power. It's the story that how you obtain the Darksaber, and if she just takes this from him. She's a pretender on the throne. So really kind of interesting to see. Again, for those that have watched Clone Wars or Rebels, let me know if that kind of contradicts what we get here in this scene. But nonetheless, we get probably the most controversial moment of this entire show. We see that the whole platoon is making their way back. The Darksabers making their way back on the ship. They're banging on the door, and here's the moment, ladies and gentlemen. We see a X-Wing make their way to the ship. And it's not, Ahsoka. It's not Ezra. It's not Mace Windu. It is the one and only Luke Skywalker, as we get this, to me, the reverse of what we got in Rogue One, a Darth Vader in his prime. We see Luke Skywalker in his prime. We see him taking out the Darksabers with so much ease. Again, the action in this episode was some of the best Star Wars action of all time. It was so great. Seeing him using the Force, him using his green lightsaber, him taking out one of the Dark Troopers with his hand and crushing them from the inside out was just so great. Again, Luke Skywalker in his prime, absolutely gorgeous. But the only issue, and I think it's pretty universal of the issue that I have, and a lot of you all might have the same issue, the CGI. If they would have just left it with him with his cloak on, maybe having him take his cloak off and have it from behind him, the camera showing him, you don't see his face. But no, they show us the CGI face of a young Luke Skywalker. And do you cast Sebastian Stan? A lot of fan casting there. Do you do it the way I recommended? Just have the camera from behind him and just hear his voice. But they show his face, and that's like the thing that really took me out of the moment. I love the moment, don't get me wrong, but it was that CGI, that uncanny valley of just like, it doesn't even look as good as some of the stuff we saw in the prequel, or I should say the sequel trilogy. The CGI just looked like really kind of bad. I'm not going to lie. But nonetheless, moving forward, narratively speaking, it makes sense, right? I know some people are going to be upset because it's yet again a Skywalker getting into the mix. They're always involved in every Star Wars story, but it makes sense that Grogu would call out the most powerful Jedi that's around during this timeline. It would be Luke Skywalker. It wouldn't be anyone else, right? I mean, of course, it could have been someone else, but it makes sense narratively that it would have been Luke Skywalker, the most powerful Jedi that would have been there to answer that call. But again, let me know your thoughts in the comments. If you're okay with Luke Skywalker appearing, what did you think about the CGI? Just let me know your thoughts in general about the return of Master Luke. As we wrap up the episode, I think one of the most emotional moments of the season, we see the child and we see Mando saying their goodbye. We see Mando promises that he will see the child again. He actually takes off his helmet. Grogu touches his face. It's an emotional moment. I'm not going to lie. And again, Pedro Pascal is an incredible actor. Him acting against this puppet was just so great. We get a fan service moment. R2-D2 comes into the mix. We see Master Luke will be training him. And again, really emotional moment, seeing Mando, seeing, from kind of the reverse of the poster of Mando having the child and child looking over his shoulder, Luke Skywalker reversed the shot. So really great moment to kind of cap off the season. We end the episode with the door shutting, and wait, there is more. We get a really awesome post-credit scene. As we break down the scene here, we go to Tatooine and we see Jabba the Hutt's palace, and Bib Fortuna is now the ruler. He's now taken over the throne since his master's death, since the last time we saw Jabba the Hutt's palace. We see Fennec takes out, his goons. We see that he's like, oh, I'm surprised you're alive, trying to talk his way out of the situation. Boba Fett shoots him, takes him out of the throne. Boba Fett sits in the throne. He is now the ruler of Tatooine. And before the screen goes to black, we get on the screen the announcement that wasn't announced in the investor meeting, but the title of Boba Fett's series is The Book of Boba Fett, coming in December of 2021. We'll talk more about that in a minute here, but again, miniseries, 4 episodes, 6 episodes. Is it tied? Is it Mandalorian season 3? We'll talk about it here in a second. But before I give you my overall thoughts of the season, my thoughts on season 3, and of course that post-credit scene, I would be remiss without mentioning the loss of the original actor that played Boba Fett. Sadly, the actor that played Boba Fett in the original trilogy, Jeremy Bulloch, passed away at the age of 75. As you all can see on the screen now, this beautiful artwork from Boss Logic. Again, rest in peace to Jeremy. If it wasn't for him, we wouldn't get in the Mandalorian. We wouldn't be getting a Boba Fett series, so rest in peace to him, and thoughts and prayers go out to his family. But finishing this off, overall thoughts of season 2, it was better than season 1. This is some of the, if not the best live action Star Wars since the original trilogy, in my personal opinion. It was so great. Minus the 10th episode, chapter 10, I should say, episode 2 of this season, The Passenger, directed by Peyton Reed. This season was incredible. Highlighted by the episodes, the chapter, the Jedi for me is top tier, the Huntress, as well as, or I'm sorry, the Heiress, as well as the Believer, and directors Jon Favreau, Dave Filoni, Bryce Dallas Howard, Rick Famuyiwa, and now add Peyton Reed to that list. I love what we get with Robert Rodriguez episode, but those directors to me, and again, Peyton Reed getting his redemption story for his lackluster episode 2, The Passenger, he really stepped it up, really knocked it out of the park with this episode, and I'm really excited to see who they bring for season 3 in the directing chair. Which, speaking of directing chair in season 3, what are our thoughts, ladies and gentlemen? Will we see Luke actually training the child? Will they cast Sebastian Stan? Will we just go jump ahead of time and not even see the training, and we just kind of see him train as a Jedi? Will we see Mando now being the leader and the ruler of the Mandalorians and that dark saber, Bo-Katan? Who's gonna get that dark saber, and how will they figure it all out? As well as Grogu's blood, Snoke, Palpatine. Where would that blood go? What will we see from Moff Gideon as he attempts to talk his way out of getting captured? Will they try to humanize Moff Gideon? Will we get a backstory of him as well as Dr. Pershing? A lot to look forward to in season 3. And going back to the book of Boba Fett, will this be a separate kind of, because they announced in the investors meeting that we're going to get the Mandalorian season 3 in December. So will this go like, we're going to get like maybe 3 or 4 episodes leading up to season 3 of the Mandalorian, of the Boba Fett, the book of Boba Fett series? Or is that like a subtitle, and will we just see it just kind of be mushed into one series? What do you all think about it? Are you excited for that spinoff of the Boba Fett, the book of Boba Fett? What are your thoughts for season 3? What are your thoughts of season 2 and this finale? Let's discuss it all in the comments. Again, I can't thank you all enough for supporting these reviews. I will be continuing to review shows. There's a lot to review this year. I'm going to be talking about the final finale, or part 4 of Sabrina. Top of the year, we got 30 Coins, a horror show on HBO. We have, of course, WandaVision that I'll be covering. We have Dickinson on Apple TV Plus. We have Servant season 2. So keep an eye out for all those TV show reviews. But again, thank you all for tuning in every single week. Let me know your thoughts, your pros, your cons of this episode. Make sure to like, share, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell. Hope you all enjoyed this review. Hope you're staying safe, and we'll see you in the next video.